Alright, so in this video, just going to go ahead and talk about some very basic modeling tools. We'll not get in too deep into the different tools, as there are many tools. I just want to talk to you about some of the ones I put up here, as well as this modeling panel. It's called the Modeling Toolkit. So basically, you have different ways of starting out a model. You could, create a cube and then start extruding on a side to, create. Let's say you're gonna create like a robot arm or something. I could do another extrude, and then another extrude, and so on and so forth. That is one way of, of dealing with sort of more mechanical structures. But if you want to, maybe let's just blow that away. Start doing something a little more organic. You could jump into the side view, and with this tool here, it's the Create Polygon. It's under Mesh Tools, Create Polygon. I could, let's say, I was going to do a bird or something. I could actually just use it like you'd use the pen tool in Photoshop and sketch out my model, or the profile of my bird thing. It's good enough. And then if I hop back into perspective view, I can actually go ahead and grab the whole face and extrude it. When you do that, you can add divisions so that I could grab the center edge and kind of make a, scale that edge. It's not going to scale perfectly, but you can correct it and move vertices around. So very quickly, I can get something, representational, something that looks like, something you see in nature up on the screen without much effort at all. Now we have problems here because when we did the extrude, we didn't connect these edges. Well, if I undo and I go all the way back to that step, and then I go into this multi-cut tool, you can use this tool to connect edges where you, or connect vertices where you think it would make the most sense to close up your geometry. So let's say we're going to model a mouth that opens. I'd want to have a point to work with there. I will close that off. And then we're going to kind of want to have some of an edge to work with there somewhat. And then here is that point. You want to make sure you look at the vertices and not leave any loose ones like that. Looks like I'm okay everywhere else on the body, so I jump back into my multi-cut and I'll just connect that to there. And maybe I'll do a long cut across. That's fine. And then just close up this wing. You may want to move this down. See what I'm doing? I'm just kind of pushing either verts or edges. Does not matter. I'm going to do one more cut across here. And I'll close this up right here and here. Oops. Okay. Maybe one last one here. Was not intending to actually build a bird model, but now when I do the extrude, I can maybe just do a little bit. Then I remove the feet, do another extrude. You see what I'm getting at? Maybe offset that a little bit there so that it actually bevels a little bit. Maybe go the other way. But we don't need a division. Anyway, you're getting the idea. So it's like we have, it's rendering dark, so I'm wondering if my normals are, sorry, there we go. We are reversed as I suspected, so if I flip my normals, reverse. And then, so another thing is when you're modeling, you want to, if it's something symmetrical like an animal or a vehicle or a robot or a gun, you only want to worry about modeling one side of the object. So what I usually do, I tend to early on, I'll delete all the interior faces and then I will duplicate. So let's say we are going to complete out this model. We would sort of figure it out like this is the right side of the bird. Then if I grab that inner edge and move it in, maybe grab these verts out here and oops, 1 second. So what I would do is I would line it up in the front view like that, and I would insert the pivot point back to the x-axis. I'd go modify, freeze transformations, put that on my shelf, and then I would go to edit, duplicate special, and I would keep it as an instance and scale it on the negative x. So there we have kind of a 3D guy, a 3D bird guy that we could, start to arrange vertices so that it looks more appropriate to the actual birds that we know in nature. So I've used very few actual tools right at this point. I'm just basically working with a low poly count. But you can see that we are starting to have a form that's taking shape of something that we can all recognize as a bird. And I promise you that I did not set out to do this, but that's just sort of how it goes with demos. Um, so we aren't making a bird, but we are demonstrating tools. So I'll keep this guy on the screen here, and we'll go ahead and talk about some of the other tools here, which we have. So we've done the extrude function. So I'll go ahead and, not because I have an instance, I know that everything I do on one side will be mirrored on the other side, because as an instance, it's just going to be treated as as the same exact object, but on the negative x. So I'm going to go ahead and show you real quickly here just a few more things. Let's say we want to have another edge here where I'm working, just so I have more definition. Well, we could bevel this, and that will add sort of a roundness to it. So if I select the edge here, and I'll do it, let's just say up to the head. I'll remove the edges of the head. And I'll go ahead and select the tool. Oops, I'm going to select it from up here so that I get this options box, or editing box. But you can see segments adds more segments. And we don't have, because the edges were very close together, we're not going to have much of a pronounced bevel. But I can go in and I can spread the edges out a little bit. That's good. So, cool. All right, so our dumb little bird has a little bit of a beveled arm. If we want to add edges, more edge rings, we can just use this tool and it will cut an entire ring across whichever edges that we've got our mouse cursor over. So I could, maybe that needs to terminate to there. And now, there we go. Now the offset one is another one you're going to use a lot. Okay, this next tool I want to talk to you a little bit about is called the Lattice. And Lattice is what we call a deformer. So if I break out this menu here, it's under modeling. It's the deform menu. We have what's called a lattice. And if I just create it with nothing, you can see that I get this sort of frame. I'll just pull it up here. And there's nothing that you can do other than move these points around. But if I delete this lattice and I create some geometry, let's just put in this sphere. And I'm going to move the sphere to the center. And now with the sphere selected, I create the same lattice. Now that cage is sort of connected via, it's a driver of this sphere. So the sphere, when I have it selected, has this new input right here called FFD1. And you can see that these numbers here for STU, I believe you could think of those as sort of the influences of the lattice. When I grab the lattice itself, you can see I could adjust the divisions here of the vertical and horizontal directions. Now, let me just change the background. Okay. So now it reads a little better on the screen. Well, what a lattice does, it gives you the ability to manipulate a shape without actually touching any vertices. So I could go ahead and still manipulate this shape by moving the vertices, but if I right-click on the lattice or over the lattice area, I get object mode and lattice point mode. And when I go in lattice point mode, I can go in now, select these points, and I can actually do things to the mesh because it's an influence object. So, oops, I grabbed that one, didn't mean to. So I've got these 4 points selected, and then when I pull, see how it's like a soft modification of the sphere. And you could do some interesting modeling tweaks without having to get into the one-by-one vertice selection. So it's similar to soft selection in that you're just using 1 or 2 points to influence the points around those points. But in the end, you can use a lattice to do some pretty sweeping changes without actually, making any actual changes to your vertices. I could also go in and grab points on the side, and I could double click on move, put symmetry on the object back on, symmetry on the object X. So now everything will be affected on the x-axis, on the negative x-axis. So you can see that's the same would happen if I did the Z, sorry, Y, yeah. So that doesn't pick up those because I'd already moved those and they were not in the same flipped coordinate space on the y-axis. But if you get a shape that you like, let's say that I was making some rocks or something. First of all, you may not need all these points. I just showed you. I just wanted to for you to be aware that you could change those numbers after you created the division numbers. You could change them back even. Oh, actually, maybe not. But when you're happy with the changes and you want to get rid of the lattice, all you do is edit, delete by type history. And when you delete the history, those changes are now mapped to your model for good. Now, if you are not happy and you want to get rid of it, see that? When your geometry leaves the lattice, it pops right back into shape of what it was originally. So you can actually do some people use a lattice to make animation, which is totally fine and a neat way to experiment. But most people, in terms of modelers, will use it to rough out some quick organic looking stuff like that. So that's lattices. I can show you soft select real quick because I don't think we've talked about that. So let's take the same type of primitive. I'll just ramp it up a little bit in resolutions since it'll be easier to see. Well, I remove symmetry. Okay, so now I've got object mode. There we go. Now I know I'm only going to grab one vertex here and move that one vertex, but let's say I want to move a range of verts. Well, I can hit B, and if I hit B, you see how I now have this gradient looking space where I've selected, and when I move my mouse around the object, even with nothing selected, you can see that that's the soft selected area, which means when I move, I can be in faces, I can be in edges, I can be whatever. If I choose this one face and I choose to move it, well, you can see that it's similar to how it was working when we were manipulating the lattice, in that it's affecting a range of faces surrounding the one that's selected. I can grow the selection by pressing Shift greater than or Shift less than, makes it smaller. And if you want to change the radius of the affected soft selection area, you can hold down B and left mouse click drag. So if I have a huge selection like that, you can see that I'm really affecting every one of those vertices down to the ones that are not part of this gradient. So, and if you turn on symmetry, you can affect it in multiple directions. So these are just some of the tools that you may find useful as you enter into organic modeling. And a lot of packages have similar tools, so it's good to know about. All right, that's it. See you in the next lesson.